Right, yeah.
Jim.
Is Carl here? No, he's not here. He often just comes in on Zoom, but okay, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're ready to go. Yeah, now you're the speaker tonight. Hi Marie, how you doing? We can get started right at 5. I mean, normally what we do is we wait about 5 or 6 minutes for everybody to come in. And then our normal hello Charlie, how you doing?
Hi, all right. Ready
Can
to
you
get
hear
going?
me?
Yeah.
She's here.
Okay, welcome.
She doesn't mind waiting a few minutes.
Well, I do.
And the thing is, our normal protocol is we have the speaker speak for an hour or so. We have a question and answer period.
Yep.
Then we go into what we call a rebuttal period.
I do it to leave right at 6:10. So
If we want to do that, then
Yeah.
it's fine. We'll do that.
be shorter, and then we could go right into Q&A. It's pretty
That's fine. Okay.
Yep.
You don't have to
These
talk
guys are
an hour.
talking.
20
What,
minutes is
Charlie?
fine. She does not
What?
have to talk an hour. 20
Okay.
to 30 minutes is fine.
Still having some trouble with this.
I don't know why he said that.
Fuck it, Charlie. Okay, go ahead. I need to check the volume on the speakers. Can you talk up a little bit?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Christmas. He was the guy on the academy.
Last time.
He told me that I'll call him because he was interested. He said, he lives someone.
Yeah.
Says I put
It's right here.
Careful, you should get. You let me know it's fine. Get the magazine. It's really Jay. Maybe some. Always I don't think it.
And and Jewish was concerned and the Beyonce and those fantastic. During my period,
Okay. All right, Charlie, I'm gonna be back in about 3 minutes. Gotta get some
All right.
schedules from the car. Okay?
All right.
He might not be.
I know, you can hear me all right, can't you?
Yeah.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. All right, I'm gonna be.
You have schedules?
Yeah, I gotta go get him real quick. Just gotta get him out of the car. I shall be right back. I'll get the schedules. And then we're gonna get started in about 3 to 5 minutes. Shit.
Then don't choose it. That's where Mr. Clark signed it for.
Still in it. Should you look at situation? Should you?
He's right before the storm. One storm. We tried to.
You have been much rest of the morning.
Sister.
15. You do anything?
Yeah. Just looking for someone to just put in.
Started.
And they.
This is it. No, see, this down right here.
With the,
Huh?
with the other one next week, then speak to her too.
I think
Listed, adjusted.
it's gonna be, I gotta get the schedule. Right there.
Yeah, but then they said, oh,
You're not so.
let's wait a little bit.
Okay.
Concerned that
Can you let these guys in on Zoom real quick?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get some schedules. Okay. Well, can you let these guys in on Zoom? There's. But just, I'm gonna be back on it.
Okay.
has an ending, like you said. You know, I mean, it could have been right. Yeah, right. Signatures, and all it needed was party chair, but to just write my name in.
Hi, Charlie.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. How's yourself?
None of them even knew, but they just kind of did.
Recording in progress.
Just, you know, and how it's organized to reform. It really has to be more. People need to look at
Get this person. And most of the guy with his chairs. Now he don't.
Where'd you get the sonar machine?
What's with that telephone?
Alan, show me how to get these people, admit these people when
This
it's
is a
here.
different, no, this is a different one.
So this person, we'll get this person that in.
Say, well, isn't there a let them in kind of button? There's invite and
Maybe that's it.
did it just tell you what it was? Or see, my finger is here.
You don't know.
Allow, put in waiting room, remove or report. Can they hear us even?
Hey,
Okay.
Data 1-4. You're gonna have to silence
What's he
yourself.
saying?
Charlie talking to him. Charlie could probably let him in, right? Can Charlie hear us?
No.
Charlie,
Data
can you hear us?
1-4. You've got
What?
to silence yourself.
What's he saying?
Can't hear him.
The telephone person.
What?
Yeah, here we go. It's him saying. Okay.
Waiting in the mood.
That's it.
Data 1-4. You're gonna have to go out and come back in.
You're so.
What is it, Charlie? What is Charlie?
That telephone is making it interference.
Okay. Hang on a minute.
And they won't respond for some reason.
I dare to want to.
Okay, should be.
It's still making noise.
Off of YouTube, did you want to?
Sorry, what, Charlie?
All right, it's quiet now.
What do you think?
Okay, we're ready.
All right, let's get going then.
All right, I'm gonna.
Charlie?
No, that phone is still on.
I haven't been able to.
I know, I'm trying to get the shit.
Get rid of them.
You know, I'm trying to. Where's the goddamn recording? God damn it. Just give me a second. I got one more thing to do.
All right.
All right, struck again, Charlie.
All right, you okay?
Just a minute.
Really.
Hey, hang on. Talk again, Charlie.
1, 2. 3, 4,
Okay,
5.
Maybe. Where's the rush? So call me.
all right. Now, one more time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Okay.
7, 8, 9, 10.
All right, good. All right. Hello, Kelvin.
Hi,
And
Tim.
we're gonna go in a minute here. All right.
Buddy, sure, buddy worked together.
Okay.
Buddy passed away last year in January.
They did getting sort of balance.
Okay. Okay, and listen, I'd like to welcome everybody tonight to the College of Complexes. My name is Tim, and our speaker has to leave at 6:10, so we're going to defer our announcements period till after she leaves. I'd like to normally our format is the college, she'll speak up to about an hour, but she says she's not going to be that long, and then we have a question and answer period. Then we'll have our infamous rebuttal period. Since we're going to forego the announcements and get her up right away, I'd like to introduce Marie Newman, who is a former U.S. representative. You're out of the way, you're in the camera. Former U.S. representative. She's going to talk about. She's the author of a life made from scratch. Going to talk about the current state of activism and politics, and how to build a movement of political power. I will not read the further introduction because I'd like to get her up here and speak right away. So Marie, let's give it up to Marie Newman, and right up and get her right on board.
Thanks. Does this talk? Can I take it?
You can take it right there if you want. Go right up front.
You're just frozen.
Tumultuous time we have in our political environment, and then share a little bit about why I wrote the book and a little bit about the book. And then I take questions. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
All right, good. I like it. So wild times, right? We in a time and period where like no other, quite truly, and we've said that many times in our state of affairs and our political environment, but truly this has never happened where we have literally a constitutional crisis as well as an authoritarian coming in and doing the things that he has done with his oligarch friends, right? So let's start at the beginning. I like to start about how we got to where we are, right? And I think the easiest way to explain that is that, in fact, we didn't understand voters. The Democratic Party did not go out and figure out what voters wanted and needed. I'll tell you, when I was knocking doors for Kamala in both Wisconsin and in Arizona, I sat in 360 people were very pleased to tell me what they needed. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from the people in my district. Then when I did go to Congress, we were able to talk and come up with legislation that ultimately did pass. I passed 6 bills as a freshman, right? So it's a very tool. Ask people what they want and then shut your mouth. So so I think it was one of the major reasons that the Democrats lost, among myriad. Look, Kamala worked really hard. The Democratic Party worked. We all worked hard. Like everybody worked hard, right? There's no blame, but we do have to learn from what we did and how things shook out. And we didn't understand what the real issues were and what voters really wanted. So I hope with the new DNC coming and the new chair and co-chairs that they do a really good job and we haven't had a 50-state strategy in 25 years. We talk to 7 states all the time, right? The 7 states that are purple. Well, that's ridiculous. We have to talk to everybody. So I am pleased to see that that is happening. One of the other things that we didn't understand is that about the Pew data and the Gallup data, it indicates that about 31% of the nation either affiliates, leans towards, or is a registered Democrat, and 33% are Republicans, right? Either lean, affiliate, or actually are registered Republicans. Far more interesting is that when Trump voters, when we looked at the Trump voters in the same data sets, Pew and Catalyst, only 22% said they were Republicans, only 22%. So that means a lot of independents and some Democrats were pulled over, right? So that's really alarming. But what we have to accept now, and when you talk to people under 49, they don't care if you're an R or a D. They don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. They literally could care less. What are you going to do to solve these three issues that I have in my life? That's what they care about. So I call those context voters. I have a Substack column that comes out every Wednesday morning. And I've talked about voters a lot because they are just very, very different. And we have to get on that bus and understand that people don't care about your party affiliation. They care that in my context every day, these housing, healthcare, and I'm making this up, housing, healthcare, and cost of groceries are my main issues, right? And they're different for everybody. And by the way, it's no magical middle. There aren't centrist voters. It does not exist. We want to go, oh, sorry, I'm cutting off all the Zoom.
No, that's all right. No, I just wanted to get you more upset. That's all.
So at the end of the day, we have to be cognizant that people vote on issues, right? And that there is no magical middle. So when these centrist politicians, because we don't have centrist voters, nobody believes halfway in a bunch of things. If you think about how we think about centrist voters today, nobody believes halfway on abortion, halfway on taxes, halfway, like it's ridiculous. No brain works that way. So there are no centrist voters. There are only centrist politicians. And what centrist politicians have to understand is that we should be solving issues and problems, not this like diluted mass of things that is in the middle all the time. It doesn't exist, it doesn't work, and that's not how voter brains work. So I caution all of us moving forward that are running for office to make sure that we address issues and not specifically get into the buckets and the labels and all that nonsense. So, and I think that there are some presidential candidates. I was in DC for a week last week and learned a lot about a couple of candidates that I think are going to be very good and really think about voters as context voters and deal with real problems, right? I've also seen a lot of really crazy stuff coming out of our so-called centrist senators. Alyssa Slotkin was one of them. She came out this week and said, well, we've got to be all about muscle and stop talking about woke. Well, nobody's talking about woke. What we are going to do is address issues. So she's still living in this fantasy that the reason we lost is because we were woke. It's not because of that. It's because we didn't address issues. So we have to accept that and move on, right? So that's a little bit about voters. The other thing that I think is really troubling is that our Democratic leadership in the House has done really very little. We had Project 2025, the whole text, 930 pages for a year prior to when Trump won. We should have been preparing and had a plan in place and a counteraction, right? Had a counterbalance report that goes out every week. This is what happened in reality. This is what we would have done, right? So that people wouldn't feel. The one thing that I hear every time I do one of these remark sessions, whether it's this or in a large forum, they say, you know, Marie, I feel so unprotected. I feel like our representatives are not protecting us and they're not working hard. So for me, while the enemy right now is anybody in the authoritarian regime, right? It's just clear that Trump, Musk, and that regime, and it is a regime right now, they're acting like oligarchs. I also am very upset at the Democratic Party for not standing up and fighting, right? What Schumer did was despicable. Rolling over and then leaving everybody unprotected. So now, look, I'm also an anti-bullying expert. I've written a book on it, and anti-bullying expert. And so when bullies bully, if you don't call them on it, you want me to go? Sorry.
That's all right.
When bullies bully, the way to stop them is to stop them.
Sure.
It's just real simple, like rolling over, they're just gonna keep rolling over you. Bullets don't stop because you give in to them and capitulate, right? So all this capitulation, whether it's the big law firms or the big universities, what's interesting is when Jenner and Block and some of the law firms push back, guess what? They rolled over and they moved on. So bullies, when you push back on them, they typically reroute and think of another way to bully you, or they stop, or they do something different, right? So at the end of the day, it's always good to push back on a bully. It always is. And we're not doing that enough. So I think that our strategy has to be stronger in the House and in the Senate. So moving on to where we're at right now. So I could list all of the horrifying things that have happened, that they're now arresting judges for doing something lawful that was well within their bounds of duty to do. They are vanishing people. They have set up gulags. They're paying another country $6 million to torture and be awful to our citizens. They are arresting citizens who are lawful and legal for no reason, pulling people off the street. The list goes on, right? So all of the activism that has been so powerful, whether it is the hands-off events where, we saw 3 weeks ago, 5.5 million people took to the streets, right? They thought it was going to be 1.5. So 5.5 million people. So in our historical context,
Or just, it's a kind of
across the country, yeah. In a historical context, whenever a country has more than 3% of their population really stand up like we have, it starts to make a change. And I think that's true. So we had the 5.5 million that day. And then between all of the other protests, we're hovering around 15 million now that have stood up and fought back, right? So we're getting there. We're well over the 3% marker now since March. So at the end of the day, we are making progress and they are settling down. I mean, Musk got kicked out of the White House. That's a big deal. That is a really big deal. I think Doge will collapse after that. So that's all good. Now, have they done irreparable damage? That is absolutely the case. All of these federal agencies that have lost, hundreds of thousands of individual employees and the institutional knowledge that goes with them, that is irreparable. We can't be naive about that, and we'll have to build it back up. But I do think that because we are all standing up, the boycotts are working. By the way, historically, if you look at all 183 countries in our world across the universe, that when the people have stood up and we've got the 3% yelling loudly, if there's a boycott that goes along with it, it always works. So look at Tesla. They've lost 71% in net income to the point where they've told Elon Musk, you either have to come back and be CEO again, or this is all over and you're kicked out. So it's powerful. Target has had 2 horrible years in a row, or horrible months in a row, to the point where the Target CEO actually went to Donald Trump and said, look, I'm not going to have materials and food on my shelves if you keep up this tariff crap. So we are now in a full-on trade war that has never happened in our history, 250 years. So I think the CEOs are going to be our friends this time and push back and say, look, you are ruining the world economy now. So I'm sorry.
yes.
Yeah, it's chaos. He's a chaos agent. And so, but this is all to say that our activism is working, standing up and doing these protests, whether it's a Tesla takedown, hands off, or fighting for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Also, the other really, this is very, very important. So Speaker Mike Johnson got word this week that 12 Republicans will not sign on to that horrible appropriations bill that takes away about a third of the Medicaid budget and starts to chew at Social Security and Medicare. So at the end of the day, those 12 Republicans are going to be heroes. Now they're voting against it for a different reason. It's not a great reason, but they are not going to vote for it. So now it's at a stalemate again. So what did we do? We kept pushing, and all of their constituents in those deeply red districts told those 12 Republicans, look, we're not going to vote you in if in fact, so standing up is powerful, right? And let's all keep standing up. So this is usually where I pause. And if you have questions about the state of play or activism or what's going on in Congress, or if you have questions about anything, I'm happy to take the questions.
Okay, if you're online, let me know because we're still having some volume problems with the computer. But the first one is I'd like to ask what you think of like the YouTube activism, particularly the Midas Touch channel. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
And what do you think of Mr. Ben Masilas himself?
Yeah, very good. In fact, so the first time I met Ben was when I was in Congress, was I think 2021. He interviewed me and was really impressed with him. And look, I think it's one of the top podcasts now.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're doing the brothers are all doing a great job there. Ben,
His name is Ben Masilas, and he's a podcaster on YouTube. He has a more of a following now than Fox News with their social media. Ben Masilas is called the Midas Touch Network, and it works really good. Okay. All right. Who else has a question real quick? Please raise your hand. Loud, George, please.
The progressives are only 20% of the Democratic Party in the region, right? And they took over the party with their crackpot ideas, with the border, with the all these they take over. That MOT is taking over now.
okay. So for you, so DEI has been responsible for creating right around $50 billion for corporations across the nation because we've gotten great talent. So that's, I don't think DEI is an issue or not an issue. It is just a thing that corporations have started to do that's very good and very effective in their firms. And it's very good for the economy. So I'm not sure what DEI has to do with legislation, but I will also say too, so I would say economic populism is kind of the way we should look forward. So I'm not going to speak to any one politician, but I would say that if we are smart, we listen to people that are independent economic populists that are worried about everyday issues in their life, right? And I think that's would be a really smart. But at the same time, we can't throw anybody off the bus. We all have to stand in solidarity and not let any one group, whether it is an ethnicity or a gender or anything, we all have to hang together. So let's hang together.
But why do we going to hang with people from another country? I'm not.
Okay.
Oh, next question.
All right. All right. Loud, please, Luke. Loud.
Loud?
Yeah.
Is that loud enough?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. You know, I read a bit about your background and biography, and the district that you ran in was then
Yes, during the census. Yep.
So heard that so many they don't understand it. Tell me in your particular race, because then you after it was redistricted, you lost. Some mechanics of that particular redistrict. How the specific question? How did they do it? I mean,
Right.
you have to.
Yeah. So there is a national law, right? Every 10 years, we have to reapportion each of the 435 congressional districts. It's a law, right? Federal law. At the state level, the way that gets executed is through the census. So the census happens every 10 years. We reapportion where people live and make it more accurate to how many people there are and where they're living, right? So inevitably, redesign of all the maps has to happen. So at the state legislature level, they all go in and build these maps so that they are accurate to the amount of people and where they live in each given state, right? So in Illinois, we lost one congressional district because we lost some population, right? So it went from 18 districts to 17 in 2020. So when they did that, they took my district, which was the old Illinois 3, southwest side of the city and southwest suburbs, and pulled it into 5 different districts, and we went down to 17. Then I was.
Excuse me, who decided to do that?
It's done by the state legislature, and there's some map makers that they consult with.
I mean, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Who gets what voters, right?
Right.
It's a political decision.
Right. There's inevitably political influence. And my issue with the process is the process, because in some states are very transparent, and they'll literally have a responsibility sheet that says, okay, Speaker of the House of I had no idea if it was fair or not.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that I was the most junior person in the delegation, right? So, people thought that was suspect and whatever. And at the end of the day, it kind of doesn't matter. We all landed, it's settled, we're fine. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's a process that anyone really understands.
Thank you. That was a very good answer. Thank you.
Okay, go off this question.
Hi.
All right, go ahead. Yes.
Sure.
Wow.
Take it up.
You said you were in DC last week or
Yep.
2 weeks ago. My son goes to DC. He's a Democratic consultant
Yeah.
in election. Anyway, what year were you rep?
I was elected in 2020, so I was rep from 21 to 23.
Year.
Yep.
You said you knew who they're talking to. Can you say any of the names that you heard talked about?
No, I was at a confidential retreat. Yeah.
What was it? Shapiro? What's the guy in the governor of?
No, I was not with Josh Shapiro.
Cory Booker?
Nope.
What were the 6 pieces of legislation that you passed?
So the first 2 bills I passed were actually placed inside the basket of bills that we know as the Infrastructure Act, right? Infrastructure and Jobs Act. So the first bill that it was the first bill I passed was called the ASAP bill, which brought $8 billion to across the nation to make sure that all of the transportation systems, whether it's an airport, a train station, or a bus station, in fact, was made ADA compliant. So it was called the ASAP bill, and it was a fund that made all of the transportation systems on the ground ADA compliant. So that was the first one. Another, I'm sorry, do you?
No, I'll just need your microphone when you're done with the question. We got something on us, so somebody online.
So a couple of others that I passed early on was reduced for small businesses, what some people could refer to as micro businesses, businesses that have under 200 in net revenue. We reduced their tax bill by 5%. So I was on the small business committee. That was very exciting. Another bill that only passed a small portion of it, I put forth was a postal banking bill where you could have, up until 1972, we had a public bank in every single post office. Unfortunately, there went away when big banks thought that they could make more money, and that went by the wayside. At the end of the day, we are able to we have the beginnings of that. So we have a law that will allow it. It just hasn't happened. We'll have to have another set of laws that actually will create it. So, and then there were a few other bills that I co-sponsored with others that passed that did things like on transportation and infrastructure, a watchdog group. We created a watchdog group that makes sure that in each large city that there is a watchdog for ethics in each of the like it would be our TA. So the watchdog group system. And then a couple of the others were pretty complicated because one was around taxes and the other one was around civil rights that was pretty complicated. So those were the 6 that I passed.
Okay, we got a question from Charlie. I just need to.
Sure.
Still having trouble with speaker. All right, Charlie, go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Newman, I'm questioning whether or not we should be focusing on the traditional forms of protest which the administration doesn't appear to be responsive to in any fashion. Shouldn't we be focusing instead on the midterm elections?
Thanks for your question, Charlie. So, did everybody see the New York Times poll? He's underwater on every topic. So what that tells us is the protests are affecting the voters. And it's never going to affect him because nothing permeates him, right? So we don't care what he thinks or what he says. We do care about what the voters think and say. So right now on his top two topics, which is immigration and the economy, he's hovering around 44%. And then other topics, he is dipping into the 30s. So he's averaging out, I think, around 43% overall, which is historical. There's only been one or two other presidents that were that low in approval. So it is working with the voters. So I encourage the protests to go on. Nothing will affect him, just so you're clear. And we should, but to your point, we should be looking at midterm elections, and that is what the House and the Senate leadership are concentrating on.
I'd like to ask you two questions. One, can you give us a little bit of background why you took the CEO on at Little City? And the second is tell us a little bit more about your book.
Sure. So, after I left Congress, I have to tell you, there was just a deluge of great opportunities and everything sounded good. Like, there was a lot of opportunities in DC. Pete Buttigieg offered me an appointment, and I just didn't want to live in DC. So I said no to all the ones where it would require I stay in DC. I had some great executive recruiters who were very kind and helped me walk through a process. And one of my kind of North Stars is equity for all, make sure marginalized communities get what they need, right?
Right.
And the intellectual and developmental disabilities community is always underfunded and underattended to, right? So when they started talking to me, I had a few offers. One was a corporate position to run a small company, and there was another nonprofit in the mix, and a few other things. And it just seemed like it was a really great thing, and I really did enjoy it. It was a great organization. But I did get bored after about a year. And so I did move on, but I loved it.
Good.
And then my book is called A Life Made from Scratch. If you'd like to buy one, it's over by my husband there. And people ask why did I decide to write a book? Well, when I was leaving Congress the last few months, a few publishers came to me and said, hey, you have a really interesting story, and you've done some unique things. How about if you write a book? And I said, well, not sure I really want to do that. And thought about it for a while. My team pushed me on it. I ended up writing it. And effectively, it's just a prescriptive memoir. So it's a series of stories about coalitions that I've built and problems that I've solved, movements that I've started, anti-bullying movement, what have you, and then the lessons that I've learned. So every time I've built something, it's been from scratch. So that's where the name came from, A Life Made from Scratch.
One more point, and I'll shut up. Are you familiar with a group called Toastmasters International? Have you ever been a member of it?
No, I have not, but I am familiar with them.
Because I think we'd like to get you for a speaker at one of our district events one of these days.
Happy to. You can, Charles has my information, right, Charles? And
Yeah,
you can,
we got.
yep. So good. Yeah, happy to.
Who else has a question? All right.
I got one.
All right, let's go, George. George is our Trumpian fan, so all right, George, go ahead.
Do you think the Democratic Party under Biden was trying for socialism? This is a center-right country. That won't work if they go in the next election.
So there's no center. Nobody is centrist anymore. There's no centrist people.
Centrist, right? Centrist, right?
So do you believe halfway on taxes?
Halfway on taxes?
Yes. So are you in the center on taxes?
Well, I didn't think about taxes.
The center on the economy?
Well, I'm more in the center than the Democrats were.
Okay, so tell me what the center. So you better, or tell me what the center is.
Well,
What would be some centrist policies?
I'm more right wing, and
I think you answered. I'm not trying to be glib. Please tell me a centrist policy, because I've never found one in all my many years in politics.
as opposed to left wing radicals that the progressives are.
So right wing is center, is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying the pundits say this is a center right country. It's not left, and you know it's not that left wing.
So for me, I actually don't believe in right, left, and center. I think that it is a misnomer. I think this country believes in issues, and there are solutions to their issues. So for me, I categorize myself as an independent populist because I believe strongly that the economy should be fair for everybody, and that in fact everybody should have their rights, their civil rights. So at the end of the day, what I ran on is everybody's everyday issues. So whether it was healthcare or the cost of living or groceries or whatever your challenge was, I believe everybody had rights, and I believe everybody should have a fair economy where they actually can move up the ladder and have a good state of life.
But the Biden administration, they wanted to have these immigrants, these migrants come over the wall, 20 million of them, and then the transgender, they have men compete against women in physical sports.
So I'd love for you to show me that case where that happened and there was a problem, please. And I'm happy to hear that case.
You just read the paper and you'll see that happens. And
I'd like to see the case. Yeah, I would.
she had a concussion. Yeah.
Could never do that, right? A woman could never hurt somebody. Yeah. Really strong.
Okay. All right, hand me the mic again. We got another question online. Okay, Charlie, go ahead.
Yes, Trump has put together, Marie, what I perceive a pretty formidable coalition. Southerners, Christians, residents of small towns, rural areas. How do we penetrate them? We got people like George. Has anybody come up with an effective strategy for penetrating these individuals?
Really good question, Charlie. And that's what I tried to say in my column hundreds of times over the last year, is that being disrespectful to Trump voters is not helpful. It just isn't. We do have to understand what their issues are and understand how we can solve them together. It is not a case where it is effective that we're constantly saying, just by simple virtue of the fact that you voted for Trump, that you're an awful human. It's just not helpful.
What?
But what we can say is that the spirit of it is that people like Trump, because he said he would fix it. We all have jobs and people to take care of in our lives, and we're very busy. And when someone comes along like Trump and says, I'm going to fix it, it's very helpful, because you know what? You're busy. And I think the one big problem that the Democrats had is that they never said, hey, I'm going to fix it. They would double think and say, well, I'm going to collaborate, to work on, to think about, to, whatever, to plan. And Trump said he was going to fix it. Now, he hasn't fulfilled any of that the first time. Maybe he will moving forward, but he hasn't. So I think we have to be known as the fixers of problems and not the planner, collaborator, talk about it for a long time.
Okay, we got, all right, make it nice and loud, okay?
On advance that when they have designated so much.
Hang on, I'm gonna hand you the microphone real quick, okay, if we can. Yeah, just
Don't go that far.
no, yeah, just use the microphone and then we'll get you in. I'm sorry, it's
The Advance Act has designated a great deal of money for energy resources. And much of that money is going into nuclear power. And part of it is going across the lake here to restart Palisades. And they're thinking of restarting TMI 2 and or TMI 1, I get them mixed up. And this restart business is going around the country. And they're also thinking of building a small modular nuclear reactors. And I'm wondering if you could tell us what your position is and how you feel about that kind of money going into nuclear power, and just your views on nuclear power.
okay. And thank you for putting up with the mic here.
It's no problem. So our problem with nuclear power is that, in its heyday in the 70s, We thought we were going to figure out how to store it and then move the waste. We haven't figured out how to move it, and we haven't figured out how to store it. So we that made it a powerful thing to use. We haven't, and we're unwilling to fund that research. Now Trump has taken away that research too. So at the end of the day, I don't know, where's it going to go? So I don't think it's a great idea till we do those things. That's my point of view.
Good point. I'm sorry, I'm pro nuke, but
Yeah.
know some of the, no.
Like it does sound good. Like I think there's merit there if we can figure out how to responsibly store it and
Yes.
responsibly move it and get rid of the waste. God bless, right? Like let's do it. And here's what I believe. I believe in American innovation. If we can do that, I mean, we've solved some very tough problems. If we can do that, that would be amazing.
China's doing it right now, but
they're not nearly far enough on storing it and
Right.
And removing it. So
well, it's what I'm saying is they got that one thorium reactor now that's running on liquid in the middle of the Gobi Desert, which is something I've been advocating for a while. But anyway, let's get on.
questions?
Yeah, let's get on to some other questions. Who else? Anybody else online?
Go ahead.
All right, well, go ahead.
It seems this push for war against China and Iran. I mean, how can Congress, how can people stop that?
Yeah.
Fight for peace.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of the hands-off movement too. There's 5.5 million people that are standing up. That is clear when I see any of the protests that people want peace, right? We want something to happen in Ukraine where there's actually peace deliberated upon, and they're not even talking right now. That Trump has done such a horribly bad job with that and made it worse, and now Putin is laughing at him. It's really a bad situation. The trade war.
The Democrats weren't doing good either. But
I do think that just funding something and not negotiating peace was not smart. I agree with that. Like I don't think that the Democrats were doing a great job. So it's problematic. But war is always problematic. But having a trade war, and we can look back historically when we've had trade wars, sometimes it evolves into a real war. So that's very scary, right? Dealing with China the way we're dealing with them instead of having real conversations is problematic. So for me, I think we're at the precipice of other wars breaking out, and that's very scary. I hope it doesn't. Maybe it won't. Maybe there's something magical going on no one knows about.
so why aren't you running again?
So I always answer it this way. First of all, I would never do that to myself, to my family, to my friends, to my supporters, to my staff, because there were a lot of very bad things that happened in my race that didn't need to happen, right? So I won't do that again. I also hate fundraising, so that's a problem.
Okay.
That's where I want to get money in politics. Super hate it. And then the third thing is that I don't think there's a place for me to run now. There's no open seat. Yeah, I would not want to go. I don't want to raise $20 million, and I don't want to run around the state of Illinois going full blast and be away from my family for that long.
What horrible things happened to you that
It's not. I kind of put it to bed. But it's the standard stuff, and then some very deviant stuff happened to me. So I think it would be rinse, wash, repeat if I ran again. The establishment doesn't enjoy me.
Okay. All right, let's go with Charlie one more time. All right, we'll get you guys in there. Go ahead, Charlie.
Okay, Marie, here at the college, a number of us have been assiduous advocates for the political policy called socialism, which apparently the Trump et al. Are opposed to. The Trump voters, I see, they say, why are you voting for Trump? And they say he's going to stop socialism. I was curious, what is your candid opinion of socialist concepts of government?
Okay.
So of political model has merit, right? There's things in everything that can be helpful in a blended government. We are a government that is half a republican, half a democracy, right? And the founders put it together so that it would be malleable and could grow with us, right? And could be refined over time. So that was actually very new 250 years ago. Nobody did that, right? That was kind of amazing, right? So when people say one form of government is bad or good or whatever, there are things to learn from each of those items. When FDR put in welfare and Social Security and some of the other programs, it saved people's lives. Our mortality rate got a ton better, and a myriad of good things happened. We had productivity, it ended the depression and a bunch of things, and we ended up having a very good economy for a long time. So people thought he was socialist, and he wasn't. He just started two programs that helped the country rebound, right? I guess, things that we can point at from my perspective, and if you're asking my personal opinion, I would never agree to an authoritarian regime. I would never agree to a fascist regime. I would never agree to communism. But are there some things that in the socialist vein that can be helpful? I wouldn't want a socialist government, by the way. I don't want a socialist government, but there are some things in the body of that model that we could learn from, and like FDR did. So I don't think any one model is perfect, and usually a blend works better.
Okay. Well, yeah, I know, we're going to get, okay, go ahead.
Do you want to use the microphone?
Yeah, it's probably better that you do that.
Yeah, then everyone can hear.
Then,
Hello, Marie Newman. I'm a recently retired federal employee. Social Security Administration, yay! So I'm wondering, I have two questions for you. One is, what would your proposal be for, or do you know of a group that's trying to get money out of politics? Are there multiple groups? That's my first question. And second, what would you advise the labor force do to improve collective bargaining rights and the federal sector? Because I don't know if anybody knows here, but it's falling apart, and it will not be put together probably within our lifetimes. It's a mess. Yeah.
okay.
You're so right. So AFG is at the center of this, right? Yeah. Oh, God bless you. One of my faves. I'm a union girl, so one of my faves. But they've been trying to get out in front of this for decades, right? Like they've been working hard. When we had a functional NLRB, and we do not now, as you know, it was moving in that direction of really calcifying and insulating collective bargaining, right? We were going down a good path, slowly but surely, right? Biden, for all of his faults, was a good union president, right? Like he really was. He made some progress there. So at the end of the day, I would prefer we had a functional Democratic NLRB as a starting point, because then we could do some of these actions that would be helpful for federal employees. What Trump has done is illegal. There's no other way to interpret the Constitution as the Constitution, by, just taking a hatchet knife to all of these federal agencies. It's just against the law, period. So, but he doesn't care, and, he's going to wait till some of the courts, suss it out. And that will continue. I think our best action item that we have right now in this environment without an NLRB is all of these various hands-off protestations, and also working with the CEOs of these large companies. What they're realizing, I told the story of the Target CEO going to rip, excuse my language, rip Trump a new one, and say, look, we're not going to have stuff on the shelves. They are now starting to get worried about their union workforces, because what if there is a general strike? What if there is a general strike? And I got to tell you, Project 5051 is working real hard on this right now. So it's a very real possibility we could have a general strike within 60 days. So if that happens, there's going to be a big old problem. In addition to having cargo ships and containers at every port, they're already starting to line up, right? The Target CEO and the Walmart CEO are talking about moving their headquarters to China so they can negotiate directly with them. That's hard. So then now we're losing big companies, right? So all of it is bad. So at the end of the day, I think everybody's attacking this problem from a different perspective. The protests work. Our CEOs are doing what they can. God bless them. I mean, and usually I'm not the biggest fan of CEOs, so but now I am. You know, and you know all these other people that are working on this that in all the movements. So I don't know if you've seen Liz Schuler talk recently. She's doing some work in DC. It's not just protests, but she's going to meet with members of senators, Republican senators, and saying, look, this general strike thing is real, baby. Real. And we're coming down hard. So I think we're seeing a couple things. We're seeing in Congress that, you know, the tariffs, Don Bacon and some of these other guys just, really get upset about the tariffs. The other thing too is the minute that these Social Security checks from the federal workforce and Medicare checks and Medicaid checks don't get out the door, and that's going to be like literally within 2 weeks. The minute that happens, all of those red Republicans in their red districts are going to have a mad mob of people at their doorstep every day. And that's very painful. So we're all going to do the things. No, I'm not even talking about those. I'm talking about the congressman's offices, like showing up there, like my, what, 30 or 40% of them have been shut down, right? So
That was the original plan.
Not? Okay. Oh, something I didn't catch. Thank you.
Congress
Yeah.
let them know right away. Oh no, this
Yeah.
is not.
But they've already let the people go that answer the phone to help people with Social Security. Oh, they walked back.
Your Congress people
You
show up at their office
made my day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
as soon as this Laos redo that Social Security announced that he cut the phone line.
Yeah.
Coyote started calling their Congress people and said, "What do you need? I don't want this.
Yeah.
I want
What is
the field office is funded to my. I need to be able to answer this."
thrilled? I didn't know that he walked that back.
But chat.
And that will not work for the vast majority of people over 75. So that's stupid. Yeah, right. Or the disabled. That's right. And everybody forgets that, by the way, that a lot of disabled people receive Social Security, and even though they're younger, they're disabled and they can't use these items, right? So, but I so right there, that tells us what we have to do. Every time they try to take something away, we have to inundate them with costs, right? That worked. So.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. Who hasn't had a question yet? Then we'll go right back to you. All right, then okay, yeah, go ahead. Jonathan, go ahead and stand up. Stand up, Jonathan. Jonathan, can you stand so you can
Town hall meetings at all with the two major parties. They seem to have an automatic attitude that their job is to only do some of the more popular measures that we suggest against massive numbers. And so my impression in my 50 years in the American legislature has been that their job is basically to serve themselves and not the, which is the opposite of forming a more perfect union and spreading the blessings of liberty. So could you?
Yeah. You want things? Yeah.
It's great if we had it, but we don't. We have the money for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're unified in the money that they take, and they are dictated to by corporations. So having money in politics is why you see what you see. I would prefer to have multiple parties just in general. So, but
Denmark has 9.
yeah, that might be too many. But I hear what you're saying. Like multiple is better, right? You have more choices. Yeah.
America would do 4.
So that is so nice. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Make them a weekend.
Okay,
Here to make people think that we can only have the capacity for 2.
Yeah.
And for the last 50 years, we've seen, I mean, NAFTA.
And why is that? And why does that argument always work? It works because of money. They both have big money structures. So if we took money out of politics, and everyone thinks we have to wait till Citizens United is overturned. We don't. You can take away super PACs, you can take away PACs, you can take away limits, you can take away or you can require transit. There's a million things we can do till we overturn that. But nobody, except for, I would say, and I know them personally, there's 8 members of Congress that would love it tomorrow because they're good humans. And there's Republicans, by the way, that want money out too. So like, we could do this if we wanted to. If there's just not the will in Congress. 74% of the country wants money out of politics. 74%. 89% of Congress takes money, takes corporate PAC money, and then they get their talking points, and then they have to do what they're told. So if anytime a member of Congress of either party tells you, well, I take money, but they don't dictate things to me. Oh my God, damn straight they do. Oh my God.
We have another question online. Kyle, go ahead, please. Kyle, go ahead. Unmute, Kyle.
Hello. Yes, thank you for giving me a chance to speak here. I do have a question. You say that there are no such thing as centralists. Do you feel that's more something that politicians try to push to be for either one team or the other? Or do you think that it is actually possible for people to actually realize we have more in common and we all want to achieve a greater good, since, for example, to try to live and have America be the greatest it can be, not great again, but make it better than it's ever been before. There have been politicians that are on the far right and far left, such as Matt Gaetz and AOC, who've actually joined together to campaign to get money out of politics. So I do believe there is a possibility to reach across the aisle and work together.
Okay, thank you.
Sure doable, because people called me very progressive, and guess what? All 6 of those bills that I passed were bipartisan. My partner was a Republican. So it can be done. And the reason I don't like to think in terms of right, left, and center, I like to think of problems we can fix, period. And not worry about the label on it, because labels always get us in trouble. And by the way, labeling is a form of bullying. So at the end of the day, let's worry about the issue and solve it. And if it happens to be 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, great. If it's something else, that's great too. But let's solve problems.
Okay, you wanted to have one more question there? Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm thinking that this idea of independence, if it used to be that 40% were independent, 30% were Democrat, 30% were Republican. And so couldn't you call those independents kind of like the centrist?
Not though, because that's not how our brains think. This is what I keep trying to tell everybody, is that independents are context voters, right? They've got a series of things they carry around, and some of them don't want any tax of them. Some taxes, some of them, are big fans of corporations. Some of them want healthcare for all. Some of them are worried about civil rights. Nobody feels halfway on topics. So the moniker is silly. Independent makes sense, right? Because everybody has their independent bag of issues, right? So I think the right, left, and center moniker system is silly because it's just not how our brains think.
So I grew up the idea of no parties. If there's a way, Washington said that's the problem is parties. He had the Federalist versus and so it ends up being, echo chambers and right versus left, this versus that. Is there's maybe some way of like making them illegal, like because they are kind of,
I'm not sure that solves any problems. Yeah, it might solve the problem, but it might not. And if we spend a lot of energy on it, then yeah.
Like in Chicago, the Democratic Party is like Democratic. And they have huge influence.
Yeah.
To move to a different state, and it's very confusing. And I think the model is wrong. As a statistician, but you could say there's a correlation between money, taxes, Republicans, social welfare, Democrat, right? But and then it just. I think issue by issue.
This is related to that issue, and I think I'm more interested in it than ever, is ranked voting. I think it has promise. I think it could be a very good thing for us. So I'd be interested in learning more about that and having someone move that forward. But and maybe it is no parties. I don't know. Who am I to say? I'm not an expert, but at bare minimum, we need more than just Democrats and Republicans. Bare minimum, we need multiple parties that are real parties, because certainly the Green Party and the Libertarian Party exist, but not in any real way. They're not structured. So like we need a counterbalance to that, I think.
Okay, Luke. All right, I'll do that.
What do you think of term limits?
I love term limits.
Good too.
Yeah. Yeah, my colleagues did not like me for that, but I
Yeah.
definitely believe in and a couple of other things, and this will shock everybody. You know what? Well, there's one item I agree with Nikki Haley on. I think there should be cognitive tests when you're over 70 years old. And by the way, I'm of a certain age, and I'm not being ageist, just to be clear, I'm not.
Yeah.
But you should have a cognitive test if you're going to be, leader of the free world.
Yeah.
You should.
Okay, go ahead, and then we'll get you. Right.
You said you had a civil rights something. Can you explain what your civil rights bill was for?
Yeah, it's pretty complex. So what it allowed for is that in schools, and it's being kicked out to the states, in schools that each school system would be able to determine their curriculum within the federal law. So as an example, we have statutes, right, that indicate you have to have so much math, you have to have so much social studies, civics, and all of that. It also requires the civics because the states had taken away civics out of all of the curriculums. And so it's done in some states, it's done in blue states, but red states don't get civics anymore. They barely get social studies. So bringing all of that back. And so the bill that I worked out was what they call a collaborative with each of the state legislatures, where they would work on bills to make sure that civics and basic government studies are in K through 12.
Okay.
That's the beginnings of it, pass. And
Okay.
there's a lot more to do on that.
We're gonna get George next.
So do the red states have to keep civics now?
They have to entertain it at the state level. They're required to bring those bills to the fore.
George has had,
has
one.
All right, well, we're gonna get you next, George, and then we'll get you, okay?
To wear the clothes like that, I know you don't like the word AOC and Bernie Sanders, are they still controlling the party? I heard she wants to run for president.
So Bernie hasn't shared anything with me, so I don't know.
Okay. All right, then go ahead. You're next. Yes,
Okay.
let's hand you the mic again if you can.
Thank you.
I'd like to bring up a problem that is common to all governments, whether they are dictatorships or democracies or almost any form, and that is the secrecy that is surrounding the health effects of nuclear power plants. And this is a problem in every country. For example, in Scotland, after Chernobyl blew, there was a spike in the birth of Down syndrome babies, and nobody knows about this. And in Belarus, 23% of their farmland is contaminated and should not be used for farming, but the Belarus government keeps that a secret, and they go ahead and farm it. And
What's your question?
my question is, why do governments keep this kind of information a secret? That's the question. But I have more background. There's a man named Joe Mangano who has proved that the children around nuclear power plants get more thyroid problems and more leukemia. And I'll just bring up one more. Let's see. I brought up Joe Mangano, and but I'll do this during the rebut too. We also keep secret the things that happen in the Marshall Islands from our dropping bombs, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to Oh, I know the one I'm trying to think of, and this is a big secret. Um, when the USS Reagan did the Operation Tomadichi and went into Fukushima right after the explosion, after that happened, the sailors on the USS Reagan were complaining about their health. And the Navy said, oh, you're not any worse off than anybody else in the Navy. And they, for the first time, really let people know how the nuclear Navy was doing. And there was a man named Chris Busby who looked at those and he compared the nuclear Navy, people who've been in the nuclear Navy for a long time, and compared those to the general population of the United States. And he found that the men who had been in the nuclear Navy had cancer 9 times more frequently than the general population. This kind of information is not allowed. And I'd like to know why governments keep this a secret.
Go ahead. This will be our last question because our speaker has to leave at 10 after 6. And I want to give her a chance to also extend with final remarks.
Sure. So I am not a nuclear science expert for sure. What you say makes complete sense. I mean, I do believe that our environment affects our health 100%, and our environment is in dire shape. So I will agree with all of that. I'll answer the question about transparency is that this will sound very unkind how I'll speak about the US government because I don't know about the other governments, is that whenever it's inconvenient for us to not share something, we don't. It's as simple as that. And so it does take activists to really push people to share things and be transparent. So.
Okay. Now, seeing as how you have to leave early, go ahead and give your final remarks and maybe some advice you have and plug your book again, please.
Oh my gosh, you're so kind. So, first of all, thank you so much for having me in tonight. And I just have a few things. I want to encourage everybody to keep speaking up on both sides. And I appreciate George's comments because he's speaking up. So keep speaking up, George. Everybody else in the room, I think you're a little bit more on the Democratic side. Protests work, boycotts work, and calling your member of Congress, no matter who it is, and encouraging your friends in red states to call their member of Congress is your best phone call and will pay back in exponentially. So call your friends in red states to call their members of Congress. Support your unions because what unions come to our, in this country in the last 120 years, we've had 2 general strikes and they worked very well and it was led by unions. And it stopped the government from doing some very horrifying things. So I appreciate that. There was one in 1919. It was right around the women's movement, right before we got the right to vote. And it was part of the equation because women were working like crazy and not getting any money and being beat up and a bunch of things. But they partnered with the women's movement to have a general strike. It was 3 days long and it really worked. So that's the one that I know a little bit about. Apparently there was one in 93, 94. And I don't know much about that, but what I do know, what came out of that is that a lot of the textile industry, they did partner with unions that time too, and the textile industry had to reform quite a bit. So, because we didn't have unions yet in the 1890s. So that's what I know about that one. Protest works. Boycotts work, calling your Congress, having your friends in red states call their members of Congress, very powerful. And also, it is okay, whether it is you're a Democrat or Republican, to criticize your own party. So if anybody tells you, a reporter or someone else, oh gosh, get together, it is okay to criticize your own party. It is a-okay. So keep doing that. So that's all I have to share. If you'd like to buy my book, it's right there. We have a little square up we can service you with, but no pressure. What time is it?
It's about 6.
Oh, 6:10. So I do have to leave in the next 2 minutes. If there's one final question, I'm glad to take it.
What's your next plans?
Oh, my next plan. So there's a few things out there. So Sirius XM Radio has offered me a podcast. And so we're negotiating that right now. I think it will happen. You never know with these things. I have written another book that will be coming out next year. And then I do a lot of this work. I go to activist groups and help them understand what's effective and what's not effective and how Congress works so you can understand what is effective and how to move forward. So I encourage activists, and I do activism too. I usually go to one protest a month and do a lot of these types of meetings. And then I go on speaking tours, like my book tour is a speaking tour right now. So those are all the plans set to print.
Okay, let's thank our speaker. We understand you have to leave. What we're going to do now is
We can't hear you. There's no sound, Tim.
He's actually muted, Charlie, if you notice. Tim, you're muted.
You're muted, Tim. Tim, unmute. Unmute.
No, on the computer, you're muted. On the computer. Hi, Sharon.
all right, sorry about that. What we're gonna do next is go into about 10 minutes. We're gonna go into a rebuttal period, extend it. We're gonna go about 10 minutes each. And we're gonna start up here with Jonathan, then we'll go to George, and anybody online, just go ahead, raise your hand.
What
So
about announcements?
you want to do announcements, Charlie? Go ahead and we'll do the announcements next. Let me get the screen up and I'll get you online. So we're gonna go with announcements. Now hold on while I get the college up and ready to go. Just give me a second, please. I gotta get a browser up.
To do that. Okay.
Just bear with me for a minute, Charlie. All right, just, yeah, I know, we're gonna go with Charlie with Reba. Okay, hang on. All right, bear with me.
Thank you very much.
All right, Charlie, hang on, I'm gonna get the screen up. Okay, Charlie, go ahead with your announcements.
Okay, once again, welcome to the College of Complexes, the playground for people who think. Now, although I'm not a capitalist, I will give an advertisement for some of our upcoming programs. On May the 3rd, our special May Day speaker, Justin Tucker, will talk about Saul Alinsky and his guidebook, Rules for Radicals. Are you a radical? On May the 3rd, May Day speaker. On May the 10th, Eric Mao, political analyst, will be describing how he perceives us living in a multipolar world. multipolar. A multipolar world. You may not have been aware of that. On May the 17th, very timely topic on U.S. and world economics, presented by the American Monetary Institute. They were featured here at the college very often a few years ago, and they got a reorganization, so they're returning. American Monetary Institute. On May the 24th, local activist Tom Tresser will be talking about how he was engaged in past and how there is currently a culture war in progress. Are you fighting combating the culture war. On May the 31st, we heard earlier, but Jan will be talking about, Jane Maynard, be talking about small modular nuclear reactors. What are they? And these are nuclear reactors manufactured in a factory. And this is what their plans, what they want to do. That leaves open 4 dates in June, June 7, 14, 21, and 28. If you'd like to speak, send me a title and a description of your presentation. Okay, Tim, take it away.
I think we're gonna go into rebuttals now. And like I said, I'm gonna give everybody about 10 minutes. Jonathan, you're the first one. I'm gonna switch the camera back here to you and okay, Jonathan. All right, Jonathan, grab the mic and get behind the podium and you're all set. All right, we're gonna give you each about 10 minutes and George, you're next, and then online we'll get you when you're ready. After this. So 10 minutes and you got your time.
Thank you to the speaker. It sounds like she's a problem solver who appreciates cooperation to find solutions that many different community members with lots of different perspectives can find a consensus on. In an ideal world, that's wonderful. Unfortunately, in the United States of America in 2025, we live in a totalitarian, military-based, censorship, fanatical, complete anti-worker, anti-free speech hellhole. So I don't share the speaker's enthusiasm, although I'm very appreciative for her leadership, because we need people who can see things on the bright side and that the glass is got still a drop of water left in it. One thing that would renew my belief that they're at least trying to pretend that they want to do one thing that actually would make most Americans on whatever side of the aisle you're on happy is the LaTanya Reeves Freedom Act. You can go to LaTanyaReevesFreedomAct.org to find out more. And I'm just going to read the entire explanation of the LaTanya Reeves Freedom Act. It's a bipartisan, bicameral civil rights legislation that addresses the injustice of people who need long-term services and supports being forced into institutions. The legislation, a previous version of which is known as the Disability Integration Act, builds on decades of disability advocacy and activism to end the institutional bias and provide seniors and people with disabilities home and community-based services as an alternative to institutionalization. My mom is a retired operating room nurse. She had multiple sclerosis in 1979. She voted Democrat and donated to the Democrats and verbally supported the Democrats her entire life. I have some really bad news for those of you who think that Bernie Sanders or AOC are radical leftists. They're not. And that's okay if we can finally just say that out loud. In Chicago, Illinois, in the center of the country, where our speaker did say it herself, we might be about to have peaceful democratic mobilization for general strike, like King was advocating for in 1968 with the Poor People's Campaign, but unfortunately he was assassinated by the United States government. And so there was a lot of momentum lost in 1968 with the Poor People's Campaign. The Freedom Act will give them a chance to save face for a couple of weeks and do their victory laps of how they care so much. So if they want to win over some people, they'll never win over me, because my mom doesn't deserve to be in a nursing. My mom gave her best to the United States of America, and to the state of Illinois and to the Chicagoland area. And both Democrat and Republican parties think that my mom is a prop for their commercials for elections.
What, this act keeps.
The legislation ensures disability freedom for people like Linda Barton, clarifying that every individual who is eligible for long-term services and supports has a federally protected right to receive services and supports in the community, requiring that states and other long-term services and supports insurance providers deliver services in a manner that allow disabled individuals to live in the most integrated setting, have maximum control over their services and supports, and lead an independent life. Articulating the right to live in the community without creating unnecessary government programs, ensuring that states have broad latitude to determine how they will secure this right, establishing a comprehensive planning requirement comparable to the process states use to comply with the Americans with Disability Act, which they often don't comply with. That's the funny thing about the LaTanya Reeves Act. It basically says we need to enforce laws that already exist, so we're going to write a new law to enforce laws. That's how irresponsible the United States federal legislature is in regards to the most vulnerable. So you can understand why communities like the Chicagoland area is done with hearing in working class communities that I'm familiar of and that I volunteer in and that I canvass in and that I show solidarity in, have had it with these promises of larger crumbs. Requiring public entities to address the need for affordable, accessible, integrated housing that is independent of service delivery. The bill is named for LaTanya Reeves, who, after having been institutionalized as a child, found herself at risk of being sent back into an institution because the state of Tennessee did not provide the services and supports LaTanya needed to live in freedom. An executive director of the Memphis Center for Independent Living, a disability rights organization named Deborah Cunningham, bravely helped keep LaTanya free by coordinating her escape. It was literally an underground railroad in our lifetimes for disability rights to Denver, Colorado, and the open arms of the Atlantis Committee, where the organizer Wade Blank was working to liberate people with disabilities with many other members of the community in Atlantis. LaTanya Reeves blazed a new trail on what would become the disability road to freedom. In the decades she lived free in Denver, Colorado. She has worked to support other people with disabilities transitioning into the community and has been an activist with ADAPT. If you want to learn more about LaTanya Reeves' story, go to LaTanyaReevesFreedomAct.org. Her birthday would have been last Saturday. The problem is not that people in the United States are uneducated. The problem is that people are educated just enough to believe what we have been taught, but we have not been educated enough to question what we have been taught. Richard Feynman. Sure enough, a hero in the midst of cowards is always dreaded. Henry David Thoreau. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. Frederick Douglass. Reason obeys itself, and ignorance submits to whatever is dictated to it. Thomas Paine. A nation of sheep will soon have a government of wolves. Edward R. Murrow.
Okay, take it.
This country belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whenever they shall grow weary of the existing government, we can exercise our constitutional right of amending it or our revolutionary right to dismember or overthrow it. Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech. Benjamin Franklin.
You already paid? Oh.
If I were to go to Washington, D.C., and I could speak to the most powerful people in the world of the United States government, what I would say to them is the same thing that Henry David Thoreau suggested in Civil Disobedience, that if they want to help the community's quality of life of America, they should resign their post immediately. This is a poem called Strike Stewards. Profit big, then call it quits. Leave us nicks, then plead the fifth. Convenient win-win, is that logic? Complete lack of content. Nothing fish, is that all we get? Sack of collapsed from within. Crumb slightly larger, only difference. A pattern system rig, yes it is. There's a name for that, imperialists. And there's a name for we the peeps, solidarityians. Yeah, there's a name for this. It's called collapsing from within. It's time for a global liberation. Never got a no from anybody's soul. Canvassing for general strike. Billions of yeses all across the atlas. We the peeps know it's time. Minds who dare to dive where even souls rarely care to be. We are here to find, share all we fought for, and bring near, live and breathe. Answer to the question must sadly be asked still. We who dream to live yet barely exist. Solution fails to solve the problem's no solution, so don't ever let the hook settle in. We're human beings, not a catch on the line, not a catch on the line, don't forget it. A solution that fails to solve this problem is no solution, so don't let this hook settle in. Latanya Reeves, Freedom Act now.
Okay, George, you're next. Got 10 minutes, sir.
Harold, contrary to what the speaker said about AOC and Bernie Sanders, I believe they are radicals. AOC especially. Sanders wants to, he's a socialist. He wants to make this a socialist country. I think that's radical. Anyway, this is an example of a radical movement and political power. I don't necessarily believe in this as far as this agenda, but I just want an example. Black Radical Congress, Freedom Agenda, 1999. The Black Radical Congress was formed in an effort to renew the Black Radical movement. These are some of their demands. These are some of these demands. We will fight. Number one, we will fight for human rights of Black people and all people. We will struggle to ensure that all people in society receive public education. We will struggle against state terrorism. We will struggle for a clean and healthy environment. We will fight to abolish police brutality, unwarranted incarceration, and the death penalty. We will fight for gender equality. We support affirmative action. We will fight for reparations. We will uphold the right of African American people to self-determination. We support liberation struggles of all oppressed people. I don't necessarily believe in those things, but I'm just giving this as an example. Now, I was reading about BLM. Black Lives Matter is they were taking donations after the George Floyd incident, and they got $90 million in donations, and most of it went to their own little clique they have, where they bought $1 million of mansions, and they took all the money, and the family got some from the state, but that is an example of a radical movement. I still see people who have BLM signs in their lawn, and they don't know that the movement. I'll call it a movement, but they collected $90 million, and now they're $9 million in debt that they spent on the whole 90 million, and now they're behind by 9 million. So a lot of people don't know that.
Okay, who's next?
Thank you, George. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Ellen.
Okay. For mayor, for governor.
All right.
I'm thinking senator maybe right now, or maybe
For secretary of freedom.
right, yeah, for Federal Communication Commission or yeah, Ellen Corley. But and seriously, I think we should all think like this. We should all run for something. That's the way I was raised. And but on the other hand, now that I do run, did try to run it. I was pushed off the Green Party ballot, for example, for being anti-Semitic, just because I said I wanted to challenge corruption and
Did you speak out against the G word?
the genocide or no. Oh boy,
Did you speak out against murdering innocent civilians?
I did. I confess that I was.
That's the most radical thing you can.
It really is. It's scary to look back on history, the last 100 years, or even just 2010, 2005. People were writing about this genocide of Palestine, and we just didn't understand it, or it just wasn't sinking in. And even now that it's sinking in, you see it still continues. And I have done a lot of research into, that really Zionism is anti-Semitic. It really is. And it grew out of the Nazi Party. That's anti-Semitic, right? They colluded with Hitler. That's anti-Semitic, right? They called the Jews that they arranged to come to Palestine. They didn't want to go to Palestine. They wanted to come to America or stay where they were, but they brought them there, but referred to them as soap. See, this is the Jabotinsky party that came up with this, and with Mussolini. His name was Zeev Jabotinsky. Actually, Rahm Emanuel's father worked for him, and Benjamin Netanyahu's father worked for him. And the plan was that to rise and kill first. They were going to take all 7 Middle Eastern countries, and assuming they put it out there that those countries were going to kill them, or they kill them. So it's one or the other. So, but you guys know, I grew up with this idea that I grew up in Georgia, where there were no Catholics, there were no, we were segregated a lot, black and white, but we lived together. And I said, what's wrong with the Muslims? And they say, they think it's the eye for the eye, that I'll take your eye, or this. They didn't understand compassion and like Martin Luther King, but that wasn't true. Everything they've told us about Muslims and Arabs and Palestinians is just not true. And it's actually, they should be saying it about themselves. So what George just read, this opposition to state terrorism. I remember looking, what is state terrorism? But I was marching with Black Lives Matter in 2020 because of the George Floyd thing. And, you saw him, I can't breathe. And, then you realize, I'm marching. Also, I was opposed to that V thing that I'm not allowed to name. And, it's really amazing that all the protest, it just gets erased. It's revisionist history. I guess revisionists, they're erasing truth about what's true in real time, so that we just, I guess, like Gore Vidal said, the United States of amnesia, that we just don't know what the last, since 1895, 1865, what's been happening. And because it is inconvenient for them for us to know that we are, what is imperialism? What is an empire? What support,
we were really have been supporting what the worst of the British Empire was, which was, if you see the Queen Victoria's embarrassing nephew was to go to the Congo and just, cut off people's hands. And, we are kind of like a Ku Klux Klan terrorist nation, empire, where that's what we support. The fascism, divide and conquer. Look at, it's like the untold history of the United States. Watch this Oliver Stone thing. It's free on YouTube and stuff. And, it was so eye-opening because before that, and, before I started, I really got woke, which is actually was a good term before they made it into a bad term. That is to put yourself in the shoes of an African American or a special needs person or anybody, a slave or an oppressed people. The way they've taken this Kahil man and sent him to the worst of Salvador prisons and just made up lies about it. The only hope we have is for Americans to wake up. We are the most educated generation, and we know what's going on, but it's like we're powerless because this isn't, it's a dictator, an invisible oligarchy dictatorship fascist that just won't let us say its name. If you didn't, it's a criminal state, it's a mafia state. Oh, well, so we're not going to get elected probably unless we reform the process of what gets us on the ballot. And that I'm determined to do that, even if it means start running now. I'm thinking for Congress. That's what I asked Marie Newman about. And, I got pushed out overtly, wrongfully, saying, because they're deaf. I'm not anti-Semitic. And, for them to push me off. So that is libel. That is defamation. That is against the law to call somebody. And I know the head of the Green Party, I still am working with her in a kind of radical green liberation group that is, a lot of them got pushed off all around the country. The Green Party people they've obviously been infiltrated. Actually, David Icke pointed out that there was a Zionist infiltration there. It's interesting. Marie Newman said, I said, this happened to me in the Green Party. She said, well, the Democratic Party pushed you off for that reason. I'm like, no, it was the Green Party. She says, well, same thing. We got to get dirty politics out of politics. We might as well just say, get politics out of politics. Because if you think about it, what is governance? What is government? Right now, it is nothing but dirty politics. And, and they've got the keys to the kingdom. They've got all our money. And actually, I brought a book. I was like, what books am I going to talk about? One is called The Takings. And that they actually say that the bank actually owns all the money, that this guy's figured it out, and then what are you going to do about it? The central bank digital currency, and they don't like what I'm saying. They just take all my money. And that is what they did to the truckers you saw in Canada. And Whitney Webb's warning us, Catherine Austin Fitts is warning us, don't let this central bank own all of us. But that's basically what happened. That is what's still happening. That should be an issue that the Republicans like George and the Democrats like me and Jonathan and all of us, Charlie, should care about, right? If we're not quislings just going along with, because we're too scared of this corrupt abuse of power. Okay, that's it.
All right.
I can vouch for you. You love all human beings on earth, and we will not let the bullies smear your good name.
Okay.
Ellen,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Can
hear
you
you.
hear me now? Good. All right, quiet. Ellen for governor. Jonathan for president. I'll be for Agriculture Secretary.
And then we'd have more of the Trump regime with us.
Yeah, okay. Run for your life. I'm gonna read something. Jonathan Reed. Yeah, Chris Hedges, former New York Times reporter. So now he's writing about Gaza. Run for your lives again and again. Pack up your pathetic few belongings you have left. Blankets, a couple of pots, some clothes. We don't care how exhausted you are, just hungry you are, how hungry you are, how terrified you are, how sick you are, how cold or how young you are. Run, run, run. And when you run in terror to one part of Gaza, we will make you turn around and run to another. Trapped in the labyrinth of death, back and forth, up and down, side to side, 6, 7, 8 times. We toy with you like mice in a trap. Then we deport you so you can never return or kill you. Erica, here. Let the world denounce our genocide. What do we care? The billions in military aid flows unchecked from one American ally. The fighter jets, the artillery shells, the tanks, the bombers. The Dow Jones keeps going up, and people's 401k keeps going up. Except when everything goes down, then the 401ks go down. Here. So people write about these things and people vote. So why did people vote for Trump? It's a good question. I think he sounded good. He said America was going to get factories back. America's going to go back to work. Of course, some people are smart and know that that's a lie. That's baloney. But some people believe it, or some people want to believe it. Maybe they really don't believe it, but they vote for him. And they voted and voted and voted for him. So he won. Now, Hitler didn't win in 1933 in Germany, but he won, what, 30% maybe? And there was a left wing, there was a socialist and the liberals. They were against Hitler, and sort of like the Democrats. And they weren't strong enough. So the old president, whatever his name was, Baron von Hofer or something, he said, here, Hindenburg, he said, here, Hitler, have the presidency. You can be prime minister. And they thought they could control him. No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was tricked in. No, they thought they could. They could control him, but they couldn't control him. And he had the intellectuals and the liberals supported Hitler, and Chase Manhattan Bank lent money to him, and that's the way it was. Anyways, so we come to today. So there should be peace in Gaza. There should be peace in Ukraine. And nobody wants to talk about peace. Peace, peace, peace. And well, they do want peace, yes. But they won't let people write about peace in the Chicago Tribune or the Chicago Sun-Times or Channel 7 or Channel 2 or Channel 5 or Channel 9 or 32, Fox. Fox doesn't want to talk about peace. Peace is, Zionists don't want to talk about peace. The bombers don't want to talk about peace. Farmers want to talk about peace. All they got to do is grow some corn and soybeans, make oil, make petroleum, and make high fructose corn syrup. So everybody gets sick and they can go to their doctor and their doctor can get rich.
You're not a doctor.
Can make 8 billion.
You are not a doctor.
Fructose corn syrup every year and get rich. And everybody wants get rich. I guess Archer Daniels Midland
the CEO was so proud of making 8 billion pounds of high fructose corn syrup because he wanted a lot of these in his bank account. He wanted these to send his kids to Harvard and Yale and Stanford. And he wanted to take trips to Paris to go for lunch in Paris. He wanted a second house in Barbados and in Florida and in Alaska. He wanted more of this. And it takes money out of the people sitting here. It takes money out of their bank account because he wanted so much money for his damn sugar. This cheap sugar, 50 cents a pound, cheap sugar. And that's what he got rich on, making cheap sugar and giving it to Coke and Pepsi, making people sick. He doesn't care. His kids aren't going to drink Coke or Pepsi. His kids aren't going to eat cheap bread. They'll eat bread without sugar. They'll eat bread without any sugar. They'll eat fresh vegetables. You can spend his money and he can be worried. You won't worry about a thing. And we got to worry. So worry on. But that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay. Who's next? Who's next? All right.
I'll go.
All right, Charlie, hang on. Let me get the mic. I'm gonna go after Charlie. So let's get you up on screen. Now just bear with me, Charlie. I hear you. I'm still having a little trouble with the loudness of the speakers from the computer, but we'll get that solved. Okay, Charlie, let me spotlight you and you can go ahead. Go ahead, Charlie.
All right. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation by the former congressperson, Marie Newman. I guess I got a bit of time here and I'll be eclectic as usual. I've got exactly 6 things I'd like to talk about. We are witnessing the destruction of the federal government of the United States as we talk. It began with Trump's issuance of 100 executive orders. I don't know where they're at right now. It's dismantling the government of the United States as we know it. It's going to have obviously some effect on our lives. They don't seem to care.
Everyday American getting what they can, these yogurt cereals for their kids. I mean, no one has time to read through all the dyes and see if they want to get that for their kid. Like, you're putting a lot on parents. And so as much as
Charlie.
All right. Yeah, we're not certain. I mean, there are some pivotal things like people. I don't know why people are celebrating the elimination of something like the Department of Education. I believe the federal government has a very crucial role in financing education and seeing that the resources are equitably distributed across the nation. I don't fully comprehend that, but people seem to applaud that, thinking, I guess they think the federal government is responsible for the fact that their Johnny can't read. And it's not the government's point. It probably is the solution. And you think they'd be behind it, but they applaud this. This period of time is crucial. The government, after the end, if he gets another 2 or 3 years, we're not going to recognize the government of the United States. Entire agencies will disappear that have been around for decades in their functions. Let me tell you a chaotic situation here. That if it would be prediction, like she said, you're losing the institutional memory. The size of the federal government is, I believe, what they say is about the size that it was around World War II. There's not an exceptionally large workforce. If you look at the statistics of the very few, it's a very small organization. So thinking that eliminating it altogether, this is some libertarian concept that if we rid ourselves of all government, we're going to be in a better world. No, I'll get more on this topic later. Nevertheless, number two, number one, the midterms are crucial. I'm not certain, again, if standard forms of protest, there's 198 forms to protest. If they're going to have any effect on this administration? They seem to be insular, and I do think we should focus on the midterm elections. If the Democrats do not prevail in at least one house of Congress, we're really in trouble. We will be in trouble. That will be the end of it. Number two, I don't understand why suddenly it's okay to marginalize blacks, BLM, gays, and illegal immigrants, but we're better people than that. And you have someone, a leader of this nation, who actually marginalized. You talk about Martin Luther King. Here we got a president who actually, his strength is in the fact that he's outspoken and marginalizes minority groups. He's got people fearful. The things that are said about gays, a topic I generally don't think of, but he thinks they have some threat, some conspiratorial threat to take over, tell your children to convert your children into lesbians and gays and so forth, lesbian gays. It's just insane. Yet nevertheless, people are apparently accepting these concepts and feel it is good. These people pose a threat in some fashion. Oh yeah, they got money and they kept it, and yeah, oh yes, of course. But no, that's not what we're supposed to do, One nation indivisible, I believe we used to call it. Okay, number three, and specifically Jonathan, you have to, you gotta, your cause there, you want to have people with special needs taken care of, which is a good idea, but it's going to take some research. What exactly are you talking about? It's not an entitlement program. Yes, this nation should take care of people with special needs, but what are those? Are you talking about people who are elderly, of all ages? To what extent? 100%? Do you have budget figures on this? Do you have allies like Jane Addams Senior Caucus? Or there's other senior groups out there, elderly, that if this is a concern, what needs do they need? I'd also look at that organization, HOME, that we had here at the college, which amazingly enough, the major things it seems to me that seniors needed was a ride to and from the supermarket once a week. That was the most appreciative program that they had. It doesn't seem like a lot, and granted they still have mobility, but simply it means to go to and from the supermarket, change their lives radically. And believe you me, I can appreciate that given my current situation. But yeah, you got to do some research into that, and you just can't, lay a guilt trip on us and expect passage of major legislation. What is the cost factor of this? You've got to be able to say that. What are you looking for? Exactly. All right, number four. One thing you have to realize about Trump is that the number of voters he attracted increased over the second time he ran over the first. He actually increased voters. Now, they may have been of his persuasion, but he persuaded them. That's why he won, because in each precinct, there was a slight, not significant increase in the number of Trump voters. And that's why the Democrats lost, because the Trump voters increased. They did not decrease. They did not have any serious issues with that nonsense we had for 4 years. And that's what I mean. They gave him enabling votes. And it's going to be tough to dissuade these people from their present situation. Number 5, I guess we're going to hear Tim about nuclear energy, but I'd like to remind you that on April 26th, about 19 years ago, a nuclear reactor in Russia exploded. And there even was fear of a nuclear cloud that was going to engulf the northern part of Europe, if not all of Europe. Now, people come along and want to persuade you that they got some new technology that's perfectly safe. Nuclear salt reactors, only a difference in getting the reaction started, and it's the same old reactor in operation with the same old dangers. On the last train to the Chernobyl train station left on April 26th, and no trains have returned to that town. Now, if you want that to happen to your town, go ahead, put up a nuclear reactor. Be my guest. I recommend you be there on the first day they turn it on. Number 6, conspiracy theories, I don't think are going to work in convincing a great many people that we're in a state of peril. Some evil people have taken over the world, and we are powerless, and they're going to do this and that, or someone's taken over our food supply, and they're evil people. There's always going to be some people with more influence than others. You know, the thing about this Gaza, I don't follow this, but whereas the Israelis are constantly being blamed for what occurs, and then I look at Hamas, and Hamas declared in their founding documents that the United States was the great Satan and Western culture should be destroyed. So I don't know if they're really good guys either, but I'll leave it up. I don't follow them issue too much. Anyhow, we got a few things to think about here. I'd like to leave on a positive note. Yes, I think the challenges of getting rid of Trump and Trumpism can be affected, but I do think, we're going to have to start all over again.
But I'm here.
Pioneers on a new frontier, and it's going to be a better world, perhaps, as a result of it. Anyhow, thank you very much. Take care. Come again.
I agree with everything you just said.
Okay, Jan, you're ready. Go up and let me get the microphone for you and we'll be all set. Let's get the microphone. You got 10 minutes there and go ahead.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I got your facts ratio and my rebuttals.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard Jonathan tell you, Charles, but he said he agrees with everything you said. I'm wondering if the surge of voters that came to Trump in the last election above the one before isn't caused by the Democrats just don't nominate somebody we can vote for. And the thing is, I felt really sorry for Kamala Harris, and I thought if she gets elected, she's going to be in really a lot of trouble, and it's going to be very difficult for her. And out of sympathy, I voted for her, not because I thought she would be good or that she'd make a good president, but I feel really resentful toward the Democratic Party, not so much for nominating Kamala Harris, but for not having a convention. I'm used to getting the nomination at the convention. And when you just skip over the convention and say, we've already picked our nominee, this this really, really, really irritated me. And then I wanted to also say something about that cloud that came out of Chernobyl, and people were afraid it was going to affect Northern Europe. That fear was realized. Belarus was the first victim, and Northern Europe has been affected by Chernobyl. The example that I gave earlier being that in Lothian, Scotland, there was a peak of Down syndrome children during the time that the cloud was passing over. Children were born all the time, and a lot of them had Down syndrome. And the peak in Down syndrome for Chernobyl was extraordinary. But other than that, I just want, I wanted to bring up one other thing. If you've never picked up one of Trump's executive orders, you really should pick one up and read it, because it starts out saying, I'm the president of the United States and I'm doing this under the Constitution, and this is my office, etc. And then there's a list. And this is in every executive order that I've read. There's a list of all the laws that our ancestors fought for, and some of them died for, and many of them bled for. There's a list of those laws, and then it says, these laws are rescinded by this executive order. And it's really, really sad to see that, because you could almost pick up the time, the date and time that those laws were passed, when the people of the United States stood up for themselves and said, we demand that we have this right or that right, and that you spend the tax money this way or that way. And it's very, very sad to see these laws being rescinded just as a list. Some of them go back 50 years. I believe I saw one that went back into the 80s. So Trump is obviously taking the U.S. code and destroying it if he can. Even the Supreme Court is not always supporting him in this. But I wanted to tell you about 3 Mile Island, because at NAIS day before yesterday, today's Saturday, the day before yesterday, we had a night with the experts, where the woman who spoke, her name was Jill Murphy Long, and she's written a book and done a film called Plutonium Skies, and it's about the results of 3 Mile Island. And there's another book called Radiation, The Women of 3 Mile Island. And the idea that nobody died at 3 Mile Island is poppycock, because people got sick and they died from the radiation that came out of 3 Mile Island. People woke up, or people went out into their yards and they could taste the metal in the air. And that metal is radioactive isotopes that came out of the meltdown. So I'm gonna talk about a specific subject at the end of the month. So I hope that I think I have a big fault, and that is I stand up here and say things that you've all heard before, and you really get bored with it. Well, okay. Anyway, what I want to say is read the executive orders. I was shocked when I saw a list of 15 laws or 15 codes that the executive order is going to rescind. And I wish the Democrats would straighten up and fly right, if you remember that song. But I also wanted to bring back the idea that the men in the people, I think they're almost all men, in the nuclear Navy are dying from cancer at 9 times the rate of the general population of the United States. Now, this was, Chris Busby found this out by accident. The Navy accidentally released those stats, because they were trying to prove that the people on the USS Reagan were not any worse off than anybody else in the Navy, because you could see from these statistics that they're not any worse off than anybody else in the Navy. And the statistics showed, Chris Busby picked it up, and the statistics showed that the Navy personnel were dying at the nine times. Getting cancer. I overspeak.
Was on a Navy that had a nuclear driven. Is that what you mean by a nuclear Navy?
Yeah, the people that were in the nuclear submarines that were impelled by because they had reactors. They have reactors on the boat that they're powered by nuclear reactors, and the people on that boat, on those boats, get cancer 9 times more often than the general population.
Even the boats that are above water.
Oh yeah, the destroyers, the
Aircraft carrier.
yeah. Well, is that the Navy that runs the air? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a statistic from the nuclear Navy. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to bring that paper, and then I'll just pass it out so you can read it. Okay.
Should be
It should be a scandal. It's a scandal, but nobody. Yes. Like I say, every time I stand up here, somebody stop me. So.
All right, let's move on. You got 2 minutes, and then I'm
Nicely done.
okay.
Nice back here. That's already up here. Sit down.
He's gonna go for 2 minutes, Charlie.
Hey, set it up.
All right. Yay, Jan for Energy Secretary. My name is Daniel Weinberg, Steinberg, Feinberg, Bergberg, Goldberg, Scheinberg, any berg you want. By the way, but Weinberg means vineyard, wine mountain, wine city in German Jews. Yeah. Love them or leave them. Wine city, wine town, vineyard. I used to when I was a kid 50 years ago. 50 years ago I did. All right. So 2025 is the year of the general strike. Go on Google. You know how to Google?
Yeah.
Do I have to teach you how to Google? Yeah, you can DuckDuckGo and you can check for general strike 2025. Just put your name in. You can do maybe 1, 2, 3 days if you're not working. If you're working, call in sick. If you're not sick, just pretend to be sick. I don't know. They don't have a date yet. It's in planning stage. There are 300,000 people have signed up, all kinds of people, steel workers, bus boys, waitresses.
How about home health care?
Home health care people, flying nuns,
United
and gardeners, teachers. Okay, anyways, general strike 2025. If there isn't one in 2025, there'll be one in 2026. Okay.
Okay.
They're all gonna get fired.
Go ahead. After Mike, I'll do the final rebuttal.
Charlie, why do you have Genocide Joe baseball cap on? He's the one that started that genocide. Why are you gonna have Joe baseball cap?
I think Israel's been attacked several times.
But it's Genocide Joe. He'll forever be known as the starter.
I don't like that at all. That's
anyway,
baloney.
the Republicans.
He's not a
the Republicans are out clever the Democrats all the time. They're much smarter than the Democrats.
Well, I got higher. I keep going.
Not so much clever. And the Democrats never figure out that 65% of America is white. And you know, you gotta sell to the white people. It sounds racist, but
phrase.
you know, yeah, I mean, you're right. I'm a racist, so I said 65% of Americans, but anyway, you gotta sell those people if you wanna get elected. That's. Yeah, so, plus, when you had somebody like the Disco Girls, Kamala, Oprah, Whoopi, Michelle, all cheering on Kamala. Like a lot of white people like that. Those are the type of people, man. We don't want those Disney girls in charge. So there is kind of one thing I do agree with Trump about is his anti-woke stuff.
What? Are you voting for Trump?
Now, I don't like Trump on the whole, but I do agree with his woke stuff. Not the immigration stuff that's getting mishandled.
What about a man is a man and a woman is a woman?
Yeah, you don't want to have men in women's bathrooms, sleepy Joe. I do. I don't want a guy in my daughter's bathroom.
Yeah.
Maybe one time, probably when I was a busboy or a dishwasher at a restaurant like this. So, Genocide Joe was definitely dumb. And he had really bad people working for him. He had the guy Mayorkas screw up immigration. He had the Kamala screw up immigration. He had a horrible Zionist Secretary of State that screwed up all the wars. Blinken, he was horrible. Mayorkas was horrible. Ruthless. So there's a lot of things not to like about Democrats.
Yeah. We're Zionists, I think. Well, now they're both.
Filthy 500 has on a, the filthy 500 are right. There's representatives. It's really 535, but I'm going to guess there's 35 honest people in Washington, D.C. Maybe. Including Dick Durbin, including Quigley, my representative. She sounded like she was honest, right? Maureen, what was her name?
Yeah.
Maureen? She sound honest? Maureen, did she sound like she was honest or
Yeah.
non-filthy? She was honest. So she would be one of the 35, not the filthy 500.
Yeah.
So replace all the incumbents. And and Trump knows if the country's really dumb. So he's a game show host on TV. So all the dumb people he's a game show host. Look at the great personality. People, I never watch that show. Really.
They just wanted the taxes. They wanted, but they're.
All right.
So, like I always say, I don't want Trump and the Republicans stealing taxpayer money again. I heard it's going to be $5 trillion this time over 5 years.
Extend those corporate taxes.
Which is the $5 trillion corporations and rich people taxes.
Why didn't you take away the contract with SpaceX for 1,000 satellites in orbit?
Oh, yeah.
Take a couple trillion off the net.
To Mars.
Why would you take instead of taking?
Okay.
Money from Medicare and Social Security yet?
Do you check a statistic?
Amazing numbers.
Tax rate. Put on some cologne. Hi.
Smell good.
Tim, are you going to
Is it fruit?
back to general strike?
I need to know more details. I don't.
Are you kidding?
Okay. All right.
How many days?
All right.
Well, that's what they do in Europe. They go on strike for a couple days and then they go back. But how'd you like that? You know, that's simple.
It's over, you know, telling.
What happens? It kind of gets wrapped up real fast in Europe and they go, okay, get back to work.
Okay, Mike, let's,
Okay, in rapping, Tim's giving me the rap. It up. We're moving into the rap. Get the hook. What, did you want to say anything?
In conclusion. Now, I wanna know which general are we striking against?
Which general are we striking against?
Stupid.
Anyway, so we gotta get rid of the filthy 500 representatives and senators that get kickbacks. Huh? They get kickbacks from bad governments. They're filthy. They make $200,000 a year. That should be fine. If you can't get by on that. And
You can't keep campaign contributions for yourself.
all right, Mike.
And so you get, so.
You're hired. You're a secretary.
All right. I guess I'm anti-woke. Sorry. You got a question?
It was a complete waste of time. A total
All
waste
right.
of time.
You know,
You can be the alternate.
You know, our world is getting to be a very disparate place with a lot of conflict going on. And I think, all right, Trump may be a symptom of our own ineptitude and our own internal mechanisms. I don't think the political system or a new set of executive orders or anything else is really going to change the way the world's been working on. As a matter of fact, I think we've been trying a lot of this for our own stuff. What in reality, I think what is needed is that we got to look at our own hearts, our own souls, so to speak. And to quote some of the most famous people that I've known, particularly Bishop Fulton Sheen, we got to start looking into our own hearts, our own souls. Perhaps maybe get to the altar and start looking at our own stuff first. And get back to having God come into our lives and in our country. That's what Jesus said when he said, love your neighbor as yourself. He's also said, you know, there are things as the Ten Commandments, but the point of the matter is this. What were the greatest two of all commandments? Love the Lord thy God with all your soul, might, and heart, and love your neighbor as yourself.
That's good. Thank you.
We would be a much better place.
You got the answer. No more terror.
All right. I may not be a reverend, but I am trying to inject a little truth in this. All right, with that, our College of Complexes tonight is adjourned.
No.
Yes, it's adjourned tonight.
I want to keep.
Like Stein, you gotta take my mom home and a few other things, so it's good time. It's a good time to adjourn. With that, we're adjourned.
Who's speaking next week?